I will call the meeting, February 24th, meeting of the Bias and Hate Incident Reporting Work Group to order. Quick roll call. Deb Dorfman,
Here.
Aggie,
Present.
Paul's here. We have a quorum. I know that Dan is traveling. I think Sandeep will be here, but let us begin here. So first, let's start out with any public comments. Anybody in the room or anybody online wish to make a comment on things not on the agenda? Okay. Approval minutes. We have February 3rd minutes. And again, those minutes are good. They're more than AI. They're like AI with a flair, with a magnolia flair.
That's a compliment.
Oh, and also I want to welcome our town manager, Kerry LaFleur, on the call as well. Hello, Kerry. Any comments, edits on the minutes?
I think she did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
It's a very good job. It's riveting. It's almost like I was there. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Aye.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. There's nobody on Zoom here. So good, the minutes are approved. Thank you very much, Magnolia, again. A few things tonight. I want to mention that one of the co-chairs of the DI commission had asked me, I met with Andrea, so I'm going to be at the meeting tomorrow to give a
Or
briefing.
Thursday. Tomorrow will be too early.
Where are we? Tuesday? Oh, yes, on Thursday, where to give a briefing on the status of what we're doing.
Okay,
That's
good.
okay with you?
I was going to do it, but yeah, how about?
Well, we can do it. We can do it together.
You
Okay.
got it.
Is that a hand up?
But Sandeep just not in.
Sandeep.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I probably will not be here the whole meeting. I have to jump back to other meetings.
Okay, Sandeep is a member, so let it be recorded that the fourth member is in attendance. Thank you. And Sandeep, we have just approved the minutes, so you missed that. Let's start with the focus groups, and by popular demand, there's another focus group coming up. You want to kind of we sort of discuss this at every meeting, but I think we're learning more and more as we go along. Like since the last meeting of this working group, we had another focus group,
Right.
and we will have one more.
Right, so there's the third focus group is scheduled for Sunday, March 8th. From 1 to 3 p.m. in the trustees room of the library, the Concord Main Library. And so that's, open for people who want to sign up and come, and hopefully we can, as part of that, also target folks who come from underserved communities and get their input in all of this, and for members of communities of color and other groups that feel like they haven't had the opportunity to have input. So I'm hoping to be able to do some outreach to get folks there, but we've just gotten it set up and arranged, and thanks to Magnolia, we're all set up now. And I did send it to the Concord Bridge, so we'll be in the bridge. They confirmed yesterday.
Any particular outreach to reach the targeted audience here?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping that I did get an email from somebody who said that they could send me some contacts, and I know that there was also, I have spoken with a couple folks who've also given me some ideas, so that will be helpful. But I invite anybody who wants to provide me with additional suggestions so that I can get that out and we can try to do as much outreach as possible.
I wanted to suggest that you put an invitation letter in the bridge, because the calendar.
Oh, I did.
It's a letter?
It's a letter, yeah.
Great.
And yeah, I did that, and I
Great.
talked to them yesterday, and they just called to, you know how they call to confirm if you
Yeah.
sent it, so, yeah.
That's great. I think that will make it.
And also word of mouth would help. I know there's at least one, if not several people on the Zoom call who have been part of the discussion to expand this. And so please use your networks as well. One demographic we had talked about here, but not at the last session, was high school students, the younger audience. Are we, I mean, this is our last shot at getting
I mean, I
focused input.
yeah, I mean, I would need some help with that, so, first of all, they're welcome to come. It's, this particular focus group is not just focused on students, but if they want to come, they're
Yeah.
welcome to come, and it is like on a weekend afternoon, so it's not gonna interfere with school or any school activities that I'm aware of anyways, but I, would really appreciate if people knows student groups or students, because I don't have any kids, and I, really don't know any particular students. So if I can have help with that, I would appreciate that. So I could come.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
I'll look for help to the school committee and maybe talk to the school administration. I don't know how that word gets out within the schools, but Michael?
I know Cindy brought it up at, maybe 2 meetings ago.
Yeah.
In meeting, and it was discussed. And it was aired in our meeting, so I'll do it again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Dr. Hunter put it in her little weekly updates. Yeah, that was the thing.
Okay, whatever we can do. I mean, I think those sessions have been productive.
Mhm.
They've been slightly unpredictable, right? But which is a good thing, but I
Yeah.
think we've gotten some really good insight, and we're holding those so we can shape our quote unquote system. And to have the public help shape that,
Yeah.
because the customers for this reporting system ultimately is the community. They're interim customers, but we want the community to be fully involved in this.
Right. And this,
It's the second meeting.
I thought it was great. It had more attendees than the first one.
About how many?
I don't know.
2, 4, 6,
About
8.
eight, about eight,
Mhm.
and then not counting like Paul,
Mm.
and, but we had about 8 people, and what I think what's been really interesting for me is, just since I was at, both of them in their entirety, but a lot of similar things people are saying across the board. There are some themes coming out, and albeit it's, when you put them together, it's still a small number of people, but there's a lot of similar themes coming, and I'm really hoping in this next group that maybe it'll be a bigger group, and we'll see what people have to say, but it is interesting to hear. And I think it helps us, get input that we need to help shape this.
Well, and one of my beliefs or hypotheses, whatever you call it, which is driving all this, is that there's underreporting, and there are things that occur that are not reported. So I think some of that's confirmed
Yeah.
by attendees there that, there
Right.
have been incidents that don't rise to the criminal level. Those are reported, but lots of several fold more that don't rise to that level that have occurred.
Right. And what those barriers are, like, yes, exactly, and why people don't, and the concerns that people have with themes, like, concerns about confidentiality, or will anybody listen to me, or what will happen, what will be the result of it, or, that kind of retaliation.
I think uncovering the barriers is a really important part of what we're doing. We're still working on that, but I think we did hear all those things,
Mhm.
It's not so much trust, but it's more faith that something will be done with the information, or there'll be some response or some action. Confidentiality was part of that.
Confidentiality,
Was
yeah.
a big part of that.
Mhm. And some fear of retaliation was expressed, particularly in the first work group, where there was concern about, well, what happens if I do report something, will there be retaliation? Or if somebody has a business, for example, and they experience that, and will there be retaliation in the context of their operating their business?
All right, the whole issue of confidentiality and anonymity, I have to circle back with town council on that, because could we crack that somehow?
Right, yeah, Yeah.
Without stepping into a legal landmine. So
right, right.
that's, I think that's important. And, from my point of view, I think that's important. I think we need to know what is happening and the specifics of who it's happening to. If it's important to the individual when they report it, fine. But if they just want to kind of add to the data, that's fine too. And so, we kind of have to strike that balance, I think, which we're trying to do. Anything more on the focus groups? Will you be, so I think we haven't talked about our report at the end or what form that will be, but I think sort of a summary of what we've learned for the
Yeah,
focus groups. Maybe it's one PowerPoint slide or two, or,
yeah,
we'll need to capture all that.
yeah, I thought I would assemble that sort of once I had this third focus group, and then I could kind of put everything together and see what people say.
Okay. So two things. So we're working sort of on the quote unquote system right now, the pieces of the system. Last meeting, we started to look at the various forms that are out there and the various categories of incidents. And I asked Sandeep to put that together, and Sandeep, you came up with a spectacular list that is both rich and long. And so in looking at that list, and I want to return to that, I kind of stepped back and this list is on, is this in the, but is it in the meeting materials?
Yes,
yes,
Online?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay, so public, you'll find that in the meeting materials. It's sort of a combination of various categories of incidents. So the question when somebody reports, and we have to talk about how somebody will report, and we want to capture the information. We want to know a lot about that incident. So the question is, what do we need to know about the incident? So in looking at your list, Sandeep, I sort of stepped back and I said, what do we really need to know? So I had these 4 questions, which I think they're out here. So and let me read those and see if you kind of agree. So we're asking the person who's the reporter, and these may not be the exact words. What do you think as the victim here? What do you think was the motivation? That may be the wrong word, but what caused the harm doer? What was that harm doer trying to do? What was the motivation that caused you to feel harmed, unsafe, insulted, or uncomfortable? What was the motivation? And some of the categories in your list, I looked at sort of the different categories. So was the motivation, and I'm not talking about the nature of the incident, that comes next, but it was the motivation racial? Was it ethnic? What was the motivation? Was it religious? Was it based on sexual identity? So there's sort of I'll call it and we would ask the reporter, did they have a sense of what that person was, how that person was trying to injure you by whatever action, on what basis? And so there's this.
Or
So-
what harm did you feel? Because the person might not intend, but it's the recipient we're thinking about.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I'm asking the recipient,
Yes, okay, yeah.
like, the recipient was there,
We-
or some recipient
Yeah, it's the
witness,
one who's reporting.
the one who's reporting. I'm
Is
not
the-
asking the harm doer.
Oh, okay.
I'm
alright.
asking the recipient.
Yeah.
And the wording may be awkward. What do you think was the motivation of that? On what basis? Was it based on your race, religious identity, how you were dressed, or your age? And without getting yet into the nature of the incident, what was it?
Yeah, maybe it's more, it's like what the person's perception was of why.
It's a perception, yeah,
The
yeah.
You
the
mean
person who is the victim of it.
With your perception.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
why, yeah.
Yeah, so the wording is, eventually I want to put that wording in there, but what's your perception of why this occurred to you? It's a tough question. But I think we need to know that, and that, so Sandeep, the categories of, on top here, and I'm counting, there are 6, 8, 10, there are like 20 categories. And it seems to be pretty comprehensive. But in striving for simplicity, could he combine any of those categories, or do we need that detail? I mean, there's always been a debate whether, how much detail we want versus how much, it's not gonna be 2 categories, but are any of these, can we combine any of these? So Deep, what are your thoughts in putting this together, whether he's not here, he's gone?
He's gone.
He's gone, okay. Will somebody speak for Sandeep? I'm trying to get out of it. There's none of these forms from the universe have this level. This is sort of an amalgam of all the different forms we've seen. So in our town work, do we need everything here? And this is not something we need to answer right today, but I'm just wondering what the work group members' thoughts are on this.
I think we can condense a lot of these. There is no database that is going to be exhaustive per se, but how, like, if you have drop down, like, options where you select, for example, age, and then you factor in like maybe 10 to 20, whatever that, and then you can do an other. And same thing with religion and belief. You do a drop down and you put in other, because then even with this religion and belief, this one is not exhaustive because it says religion, religious denomination or sect, lack of religious belief, religious dress symbols. Yeah,
Well,
so if we
look,
do-
I'm not an expert in this, but I'm just looking at the first 6 categories here. Are these all mutually exclusive, or just take those 6? Identity and demographics. And these categories, Sandeep kind of put them in these bins here. Identity, demographics. I don't know, religion and belief. Is that 4 different categories, or is that 1? If somebody feels they're being harmed based on their religion, it could be the way they're dressed, or it could be the way they appear, but it's based on religion. Do we need those subcategories, if you know what I mean? So maybe religion / belief. If the person feels that they were being harmed or attacked because of that, that's kind of one category. Sex and gender. I think we need to collapse some of these categories, but I don't know exactly how yet.
Yeah, I think some things may be subcategories and some things are not, and then maybe, like, obviously religion is a very big category, and then you could have under religion, there's, denomination or sect or religious dress or symbol or practice or speech. There's like some overlap.
I want to make this easy for the person to report.
Yeah.
Not have to sit back and think, how many different categories.
Right.
From a data nerd point of view, we'd like to have 20 categories. I'd like it easy for somebody to say, okay, it was based on my religion, obviously. Or based on my race, obviously, or.
I think they can describe, because if you box someone, then you're not giving them the chance to describe and to be
Oh,
creative.
no, we're gonna have a section here to say more about this.
Yeah, then there is no need to break down every single word if there is that other word description category, because then the person who synthesizes the data can have these categories and choose to align them, but we are not putting them all out there on the dashboard or the platform.
Right, so that's important. This is not this doesn't have to describe the entire incident.
Mhm.
You can put it in categories, and then the person can describe the incident.
Yes,
And
And-
you can infer certain subcategories from the description, perhaps.
yeah, and the analyzer.
The analyzer
yeah,
can put it
is
in a
going to-
subcategory.
yes,
I don't, I don't want the person reporting to have to
No,
dwell on what subcategory I meant.
No, yeah, I think they could do that. I guess one question though I have is what data do you want to track? Like maybe that's where you have to sort of back into all of this because starting out like with, okay, what information do you want in the reporting system? What data do you want? So that would kind of drive what we would be putting here, maybe?
No, it's exactly right, and that's why we don't want to combine it, so we don't have any richness of the data, but so these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 5 broad categories are too broad, right?
Yeah.
Under sex, gender, and sexuality, I don't think it's enough to put that in one category, maybe. So I think we have some more work to do on that. And maybe somebody can take a crack at the combination, because Sandeep has kind of laid out sort of all the detail here.
so, maybe as a next step, we could compare some, forms, the federal, state, and other forms like school-based. What are the common categories they report? Because all of them have a theme, and none of them go this detailed, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, we started there looking at the form,
Yeah,
so
we
they
can have
combine them. I don't think, at least in my examination of the forms, no other form felt perfect for us.
Yeah.
It's either too broad or too detailed, or even the district attorney's form, I think, was
Brief.
not complete, whatever. So I think let's take this, and for the next meeting, I would volunteer to come up to collapse to some categories, and we could kind of compare those with this, and at least on the top. The bottom piece, the policy protected. I mean, every one of these is descriptive, and it's just too much here.
Well, what's the difference between legally protected and policy protected? What isn't legally protected, or what is it? What's the difference?
I believe that the top these are legally protected categories from the law. The bottom are not. Nobody's protected based on their native language or their marital status, but they are protected legally based on these categories: race, religion, sex.
I think there are some.
Well, we have a lawyer.
Yeah, there are some actual legal protections. I think that your point's well taken. I don't think we should say, like, make that distinction because, for example, like in the fair housing context, like that'd be an
Mm.
example, like you can't discriminate based on marital status, so that or parental status or, that kind of thing. So, I think, there, and also then I see like there's employment stuff. I think maybe we use a different term rather than legally protected characteristics. We could come. I would propose we come up with different topic where it says legally protected, policy protected. And I think not speaking for Sandeep, but he was trying to just be providing descriptors here.
Yeah.
But I would say that we would I wouldn't recommend putting those necessarily on a form because there is overlap and some things are legally protected down below that appear not to be
I
like.
don't think we even need that. We just need people to identify why they think that they were harmed. Was it based on their religion, based on their race, based on the language? I'm looking at one category here. I'm just wondering about employment and professional status. It's interesting.
I mean, I
Does
guess,
that belong out here?
well. I mean, I guess it could happen. Like, um, this is more of like in
It
an
could happen,
employment
but I mean, that is,
context, but
I don't know.
we could take it out.
I would kind of cross that off as a category. That's probably the only one. I think all of this is part of the same, whether it's a drop-down menu or it answers the question of perception or motivation. Why?
If you had the drop-down menu for each one though, you probably need an other for each one in case it didn't fit. Cause you wouldn't want to.
I wouldn't have a drop-down menu for each one of these categories.
Oh, you wouldn't?
No,
Okay, I thought that's
don't.
what you're
Well,
saying.
I've combined all of these because the reporter doesn't, I'm not sure. If the person was harmed, felt they were harmed on the basis of race. And they started with a menu that had these major bullets here. I guess they would know their fines, race.
And we would want to have.
I'm worried about being too technical here. Worried
Yeah,
about being
we
too
don't want
technical.
people, I think we don't want people to feel limited and we want to feel like if there's gonna be choices that there could be an intersection of things that happened, like it could be multiple reasons why something they felt. Maybe it was race, but it was also maybe gender, like there would be perhaps an intersection.
Intersectionality.
And so there would need to be, I think, anyways, that there would need to be that flexibility. I also think, to your point, Paul, that if people don't clearly understand that they might feel constrained by, like, if they just saw these things and like they couldn't add what they wanted to, so.
But they could describe, that's where you leave the person to say what they
Right.
want, and then we are having these probably in the background for data analysis purposes.
Right, I was just suggesting that in addition, having something that
Oh,
just says
okay.
other, I hear what you're saying, because
Mm.
you'd want stuff for data, but sometimes people, like, if they just like look at it and they only see those choices and that wasn't
Yeah.
fitting, then they'll just go, oh, well, then I can't do this, they might misunderstand and.
So we're going to talk about, how to report, but let's just jumping ahead to that. Let's say somebody is not filling out a form, but making a phone call. So I want to describe an incident that, so they would, the person who's taking the information would listen to the incident, and then that person would have to kind of categorize it. So, there's a sort of reverse, there's a front end categorization of the reporter, and then there is something that could be backfilled based on the nature of the incident.
And you can have an intake form that matches, and that like in my office, we have intakes, and there's certain things like people are calling in with different legal issues, right? So then there's certain things that we get information that we have to get, and then the person tells us their concern, but we, fill out, I mean, now it's all electronic, but it's like a form, and so that it would be consistent, whether someone's calling in or just being on the computer.
It would be the same form.
Right, same form, right, so they wouldn't have to guess like how, like, oh, I wonder if this fits this or that, like, they would just ask the same questions that the form would ask.
Trying to think of what's the downside of having a much simpler form. Maybe omitting some of these categories which are quote unquote less common. And but still that incident, if somebody wants to report, that would come out in the form. I'm just, I wouldn't put together a form that has all this much detail. It would be kind of mind boggling. So I'm just kind of trying to balance the rigor here with the practicality.
Then the other, like Deb suggested, would be like, if you don't feel like you belong there, then fill in other, and then they self-describe also.
Yeah, the other,
Then
know,
you'd be surprised what people come up with.
no, I think it's risky to say, what are the major sources of, what are the major motivators these days? And then you could capture everything else in other.
Mhm.
Like I would put employment and professional status in other.
I didn't even think about that
Um,
as a sign of bias. I mean, why wouldn't you go to your HR? Why would someone that,
you mean outside of the workplace?
why would someone come to you and say, like, they were biased against me because I'm unemployed? How did they even know?
Well, you're looking too successful. You're looking on the street looking successful, and somebody makes a comment.
I mean, I can see,
Or you're looking unsuccessful, once you get a job.
Oh, you're always at the park, why don't you work?
Could possibly be in this profession.
yeah,
I've been mistaken for being housekeeping because I'm scrubs anymore.
Mhm.
So
That's great.
That's
Yeah.
race. But if it presents that way,
Yes, it's race that presents that way.
but I mean, the
Yeah,
motivation was race, but that's how it presented.
yeah. But which part do we need to
What
capture?
would they do
I-
for that?
Is it the racial part we need to
It is,
capture?
it is very important, that's a confounding, I mean, when I looked at it, that's a confounding variable.
Well, lots of contributors, so we'll take religion. So it could be based on, the way you look, your facial hair, the way you're dressed. And we need to know that level. If it's a religious-based bias, do we need to know sort of the details of the whys? I mean, it's
It's
I assume that would be something that would be in the. You said they'd be open or for descriptive?
yeah, it'll be in the descriptor.
yeah.
We don't want to limit that, I was walking down the street and somebody commented on my hair or the hat I was wearing.
Dress and
Let me take a crack at kind of collapsing these and into sort of the next generation. So this is still the, I'll call this the motivation. The second question, which is not on here.
was the location,
Actually, I'm missing a whole sheet here. Wow. No, the second question was, what's the nature of the harm? What's the nature of what type of harm was inflicted? Was it physical? Was it verbal? Was it graphic? What was the incident itself? Right, the descriptors of the incident. I think that's not on here. There's a lot of the forms have that. From vandalism through insult. So we haven't captured that yet, but a lot of the forms have that. So after sort of the perception, the motivations of the category, what was the type of harm that was inflicted? Could be multiple categories. We need to know that, because if it's something that's reported that rises to the level that we think the police should be, okay, but we're gonna have to tell the person, contact the police. This isn't the mechanism. You gotta go to the police.
so by that, would you mean like vandalism or intimidation? What is that? Where
Yeah.
you're going with that particular?
Verbal slurs, graphic, intimidation, physical bumping, Yeah, there's lots of.
Or someone puts that
Verbal,
there.
physical, yeah. I mean, could be, those could be general categories as well. Physical, verbal, vandalism,
Assaults.
Have,
Yeah.
have you
insult.
decided that if it goes to the level of the police that you wouldn't, whoever is running this wouldn't say, we'll be happy to go to the police with you?
Well,
You know,
Yeah,
but
that-
are you drawing a line or? are we
No,
still open?
no, it's a closely related category. What happens next? This is sort of my circle of life, my incidents are, so there has to be some response. And the response could be, to talk to, mental professional in town. It could be, just the intake person saying, you need to go to the police and, you know, and asking the person, does somebody need to go with you? So there's a whole response mechanism.
I just
but-
wanted to
No,
clarify
it's-
whether you had already.
Yeah, that's kind of not part of the incident reporting, it's part of the response and the responsibility. The response and responsibility of the person taking the information, whether it's on the phone or, you know, there is a responsibility. You can't just let it, this is where you build up trust. You have to do something with the information if needed. Yeah, so not gonna rule that out. Whether that person on the phone would volunteer to go to the police or would say, you need to go to the police, do you need somebody to go with you? You know, I don't know. We haven't worked that out. Okay, so we need some more details on the type of harm. But Sandeep was putting that together, but it's only for. These were all sort of perceptions are motivated. So we want to take a crack at doing that for the next meeting,
Oh, which one?
the type of harm,
Yeah,
verbal, physical, you know, just,
okay, yeah.
yeah, I think that could be,
Type and-
that could be take right off, there's some good examples on the forms.
Mhm.
If the forms are good for anything, it's describing the type.
Oh,
of-
you want examples too? No, I'm kidding. Yes.
Look, I already volunteered myself.
Oh, you're doing this or?
No, I'm trying to,
Which one are you doing? Oh, you're
Trying to
collapsing
collapse its
that.
category.
Okay, so I'll
so
do,
none of this talks about the nature of the incident.
so you want me to do two?
Yes. Let's do two, that what is the type of harm inflicted? But thinking about it,
Yeah.
a reporting form, I'm thinking this would be the structure of the form. Top category, what was the motivation of perception? And then, you know, this, and then, okay, what was the type of harm inflicted? Describe the incident. Third thing is where did the incident take place? And we talked last time about those categories.
The areas, yeah, locations. And
Well, it was sort of, it was workplace, it was a public place, a private space, education. You know, we had, and those are fairly straightforward compared to these.
yeah, they're not really first.
And then number
So
four,
that was also part of my homework. I'll bring it back. Locations and.
is that part of your homework?
Mhm. Unfinished homework. The dog ate my homework.
Give you an incomplete for that grade. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so you're doing 2 and 3.
Yes, I'll do two and three.
Thank you.
And 4 is just right now, there'll be a space on this reporting form, or there'd be a space where we'd ask the person on the phone call to kind of record the detailed information.
With the narrative.
I would say, please describe, yeah.
Or anything, any other information, I think
Yeah.
you leave it open to the person to describe or not to describe.
Yeah.
This is not the entire form. There's a whole front end about who are you? You gotta deal with the anonymity part of that.
Mhm.
And there's the spot after this, do you want to talk to somebody? Do you want to follow up on this? This is sort of just the guts of the report itself. This is not the entire form. To your point earlier about what do you do next? I think this form would have to prompt. They have to be response to this incident, whether it's prompted by the reporter saying, I need some help, or I want to talk to somebody, or I want to do something. Or they leave that blank. And the person reviewing the form would say, we should get back to this person. The tricky part on some of this is authentication. Is this a real report from a real person? Is this a hoax? You know, once we start the system,
The AI probably.
we want to make sure it's real. And so in that sense, if it's a form, the question is, how do you verify? If you're talking to somebody, you'd have to ask if they want to identify themselves. But I think there has to be some verification. Yeah. Or do you think there has to be?
Well, I mean, I guess then, like, you mean the verification, like, that a human is doing that, like, you know how they have those little things like check the boxes if it's see a bicycle or whatever. Is that what you mean? Or are you meaning like actually investigating somehow? Like, I don't know what. You know what I'm
How many bicycles are in the?
Yeah,
That thing.
What do you mean? Ask me again. More bicycles?
Right, you know what I'm saying? So like
No.
that is to see if you're a person rather than a bot or whatever they call it. But
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, it's related to this. We can take every report on face value and just don't worry about it, or we could have some verification. I think in all other reports, I think people have to identify themselves, whether it's a DA or.
But the Boston one, they didn't, but am I right about that?
Which one?
I thought that Dan was saying in Boston you could do it anonymously or something.
Yes,
Isn't
you
that
could,
right?
you could do, yeah, you can do it anonymously.
Huh.
So maybe we should find out, because I guess I'm not sure how we would investigate that, but correctly.
No, I thought his name, I'm blanking on his name, I thought he was there.
Dan?
Yeah, yeah, he said he would, so we could ask him. Like what Boston does, because maybe that will solve our problem, but.
The only thing is anonymous is that you have to caution the person who is reporting that. I mean, if they don't provide certain detail, then we can't follow up on.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, so that's the only caveat you would have to have them consider.
Cause I guess I just don't know how you like would investigate something to verify, oh, yes, this happened or not. I don't know how, it's somebody's reporting it in, but we're not like the police or another investigative body. So I don't know how we would-
we're not investigating it.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's a real report.
Yeah.
I mean, in the world of AI,
Yeah, no, it's a very good concern, like.
yeah,
how
I
do you
mean-
know? Even on the phone, they can like.
you could
replicate
definitely have a
voices.
bot filling out these forms.
Yeah, you could. So maybe that's like a tech, maybe it's a question for Boston, but also a tech question about how you can figure out if it's a AI thing or, or whatever, the bot filling it out, or I just have no idea, but it seems like.
At some point, we'll have to talk to our IT people to see what their suggestions are. I don't think we have to solve that problem here.
And most people who are reporting, they most likely would want follow-up. So if you're a bot, and I mean, if you're thinking like a bot, or you are actually a bot, then there's not going to be follow-up on that particular complaint. I'll give you an example. We do incident report for the Department of Public Health. So the only good thing is that if you're reporting on either someone's license or a facility that is licensed, and each facility can be checked up online to ensure that it is actually legit. So you're reporting, say, for example, about Emerson Hospital. We all know Emerson Hospital there, and this is what they did. So even if you're going to be anonymous, it allows you to be anonymous. So me as a recipient, I'll be like, oh, this doesn't look well. I'll just, for someone who's will send an investigator, why don't you just go drive and look at the medication, look at this, and just see how things are doing, how the nurses are doing, but for example, and yeah, good. But the good thing is that they are licensed, and or the individual, the nurse, the doctor, whatever, is licensed, so you can go after their license. Here, if a person is anonymous and they don't provide, we've talking that if you want to have follow-up, please provide specific indexes. If you don't, then we're unable to, or we could refer you to the police so that you can report those details. Or
Let's say we,
whatever.
so back to this anonymity, let's say we've cracked this legally, I'm not saying we haven't. Would we accept a report online, an anonymous report
Yes.
online?
Yes, yes, because looking at trends, even if it's not you don't know, even if you're unable to follow up, at the end of the year, if we analyze data and we see a theme of categories that are, say, for example, the bias and hate against say religion, or the against Jewish individuals, as we have been training, for example, would say, oh, Concord has a problem about this. And what are we as a town going to do about this, even if we're not able to report to address them at that point? Concord has a problem about, oh, Black people, for example, or whatever, immigrants, and then how can we make the town more welcoming?
Yeah, the reason why I asked the question is if you're speaking to somebody and they want to remain anonymous, at least you know you're speaking to somebody.
Yeah,
But online,
yeah.
there's this famous New Yorker cartoon. There are two dogs talking with each other. And they said, online, nobody knows you're a dog.
You're both
You know,
in
right? It's a great cartoon. There's two dogs. Hey, online, nobody knows you're a dog.
But people have to be able to be given that option, because that's how they may want to be comfortable reporting and they can't pick up a phone or what. So you have to give them that option of.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to solve every problem. We're not going to design something that's going to be totally foolproof. But we have to kind of understand what the vulnerabilities are.
I think talking to the IT people actually is a really good idea, because, you know, I don't know how you can identify, you know, whether a human being actually filled something out versus something that's a bot or whatever. Like, I think we have to ask the IT people how we protect against that.
Should I have our IT director come and talk with us?
Yeah, because it's a good
That's
question.
could we miss that briefing?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna leave
It's a good
that.
question.
That's Jeff Weiner.
Hey,
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, you know, we don't currently use technology to validate humans. But I think that is readily available, and I think that's something that we can do. And that's about the level of detail that I can speak to that, but certainly Jeff or somebody from his team could come and talk to you about that.
Okay, you know, if you had your hand raised, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
No, I couldn't figure out where that was, so I just started talking.
That's the nature of this meeting. Naomi,
I was just gonna raise that it seems like, to me, it's not just a question of bots, but you could have some kids who thought, oh, this would be funny. Let's just do that, fill out forms. I mean, that the same kids who would be perpetrators might also have a great time in this. So I don't think there's any guarantee.
no, it's.
And I think I keep coming back, as you know, to how it's going to be used, and that might help us make some priority decisions on some of these more technical data questions if we're thinking, well, what's the point of it?
Let me return to how it's gonna be used at the end of the meeting. No, at the end of the meeting, because I think it's a theme we need to keep coming back to, and because nobody's told me my incident life cycle is crazy yet. So, you know,
It makes
somebody
sense.
tells me that, then Tony will abandon it. Yeah,
I'm just really concerned about the anti-bot sentiment in this room. I mean, it's a joke. If I don't.
do we have a
bot-
bot bias?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying, because if I'm a bot and I'm reporting, I've been, I've tried to get.
Because he is a bot.
I am.
Thank you for the comment. Okay, let's move from we have some work to do on the categories and what's on the form. I want to move to the mechanisms of reporting that, and I'll just I think we've heard this at the focus groups, and I asked Dan, I gave 3 questions to Dan since he wasn't going to be here. One of them is, what channels or mechanisms of reporting should we build into the design? And so he said he thinks complainants should be able to submit reports via phone or online, and there should be multiple language options and disability services to make the process as inclusive as possible. And I would agree to that, but I think maybe we heard this in the focus groups about different mechanisms. So the 2 basic mechanisms are online form and a phone call.
Right, I think some people wanted to also have an option of in-person, you know. That might be something that's more about, like if someone didn't have access to a phone or didn't have, access to online and or maybe a disability accommodation, that kind of thing. But that was one of the things I was just looking at my little list here.
So could they come in and report? To
Yeah,
somebody
they
in
want like,
person?
and some people, might just feel more comfortable with that, but yeah, that was one of the things that people said.
So do we have a staff person that do it?
Well, that raises that question, yeah, because who's gonna take the information one way or the other and do the analysis?
Well, I'm not gonna put Carrie on the spot because we haven't really discussed it yet, but I mean, the intake person, or the person who will either review the report or the person who will answer the phone call is probably gonna be a staff person. I don't think it's a full-time job. We're gonna have, I think our town manager or our designee will have to, identify somebody or some small group that can be part of I'll call the intake, whether it's in-person intake or to review the forms or to answer the phone call. Are those the 3? Are there any other mechanisms? I just want to make it
Take my notes here.
easy. The Concord Safe concept that Brian talked about had a QR form, but that also leads to that could lead to an on-form mechanism, or could lead to a direction to call someone, a phone number. So
Didn't
Yeah.
somebody suggest having a website that would have information about resources, but also have the forms so that you could, on this website, you could say, I'd like to fill out the form here, I'd like to call somebody, I'd like to talk to somebody. So there's sort of an aggregate place that could lead to what you do.
yeah, it's a good point. I envision what we're doing here to be part of some landing page on the town website. So where does somebody find this form? With the perfect search engine, they buy a form and they go right to it, or there'd be a landing page that would have all of this, the form and the resources and all that information. That's certainly going to be part of our recommendation to the select board. Sort of, where do people go? Once they go there, how do they report? Once they go there, there's some various mechanisms of reporting.
So, maybe Kerry will also answer. Do we have like a hotline capability? At the town hall?
What came
Hotline.
to the
Hotline.
hotline?
Yeah, we certainly can set something up.
Yeah, because that would be very important for people who they can call, they can do start something if they want their name to be blocked from the call ID. And then they can also they can call anonymously that way.
Paul, I know you spared me from answering directly about staff participation in this, and obviously we have to understand what the process is going to be. But I know I've mentioned to the group a few times that we do have a handful of staff in our community services, human services, and I would envision that we probably would have a small group of existing staff members that would participate in this effort. It obviously would be easiest if they are responding to web inquiries, because that can be, you can figure out how to do that, inside of somebody's regular work schedule. But we understand if there's a need for a hotline, that we would need to set that up, and maybe the hotline might go to a different place than web inquiries would go to, but it would be the same core of people I would expect would be working to help people through these issues and track and that.
And is it possible to make it like answered by a real person, at least during the business hours? Okay.
Yeah, I understand. And so that may be something that we have coordinated through a civilian at the police station, because the police, I can imagine somebody may be calling outside of normal business hours, and we would want to make sure that they got a person. And I think we can work with whatever you come up with our existing staffing. If we have an incredible volume, we'll have to talk about that. But I think we have what we need to get started once we have the framework that's been approved.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We haven't talked about that yet, Carrie, but what is the group, the organization where this reporting system is managed and is resident, and it's probably within that human resources function, I would think, within that. I mean, it's not the town manager's office, it's not the DI commission, it's not human rights. There's supporting groups, but I think the front line of the intake and front line of response outside of the police department, I'm not talking about the schools here, would be in the probably in that function, probably in the human resources function. That's logical, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say human services.
Human
Because
services.
human resources is really
Right.
internal facing.
Got it. Yeah. Human services. Okay, so mechanisms for reporting. There's not a great long list like there is here. So
Yeah,
there's,
I mean, when I look back in my notes, they said, well, not everybody, but a lot of people said they want options and in-person, online, and then, there could be the phone, but they wanted to make sure there was this range of options. And of course, there's I just said earlier, but there must be a way to provide reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities, and then also consider language access.
and there's a bit of a transition here. A lot of so the police get a lot of intake from a lot of different reports, and I think when we were briefed on that, there's a lot of things that they're not criminal, they can't respond to that. So I think we have all of those reports need to kind of come back into the system somehow. That needs this coordination, but over time, I think we would so quote unquote train the community to kind of use this system for for routine bias and train them for criminal, to go to the police or maybe just make sure that the systems connect. Okay, so that's mechanism reporting. The other question I asked, Dan, which we've talked about before, are barriers to reporting, and here Dan has a long list, and I think you've seen this. I'll just paraphrase here. So significant barriers. One is trust. Complainants won't necessarily believe that anything will actually be done, so that's sort of follow-up. Another barrier is anonymity, so trust, anonymity. Those are the two that he identified. I'm kind of paraphrasing. He had a very rich response here, but we identified, because that was a big topic of I think in the focus sessions,
Yeah.
because you asked about barrier.
Yeah, and confidentiality, which overlaps with trust and
Trust, confidentiality,
anonymity, and then of course there was fear of retaliations that got raised, which they all kind of overlap, but those were, and then also another thing was that people were saying, well, we wouldn't know what would be done with the information, which gets to sort of lack of trust, but also like, would you follow up? Sort of like the not knowing what would happen piece of that. So having a clear statement of what the person's options were. And, like I think you're talking about the follow-up piece. I think that's an important piece.
I think there's the individual follow-up, but there's also, what are you guys going to do with all this information in the community level?
Right.
What's going to happen with that? So I think articulate, it's not part of the reporting system per se, but building the trust in the reporting system. We have to identify what's going to happen with the information and who's going to do that.
Right.
And that's beyond, this is where this life cycle comes in, which is why it's important that we connect what we're doing to other pieces in town, DI Commission, Human Rights Commission, the police, and the town.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that. But I think that well, I think the other barrier which can be overcome is sort of knowledge and awareness and education. It's going to take a while. Once we have a system to kind of socialize that system, let people know that it's there. So there's going to be a significant period of outreach.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think it's a real barrier that people just would know that this exists.
Right. There might also be cultural barriers that exist to reporting things, and then also, concerns about like, if somebody is here and they're afraid that ICE might find out.
The
like,
immigration
I-
statuses.
Yeah, so I think that that issue can come up quite a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of a subset of retaliation, isn't it?
Yeah, and how, like, the confidentiality of who is gonna get my information, because, if ICE gets my information.
And they are.
Yeah, I'm not, that's a tough one,
Yeah.
because it's a public system.
Yeah, so we have to be
And
very careful about
It is.
I mean, that's why I think the further discussions with town council about anonymity, and I really love to hear what Boston is doing to do that, because that would really enhance, I think, people's willingness to come forward if they didn't have to fear that some of the information just might get into their own.
So where are we getting the information about Boston? Was Dan?
Dan,
Let's track that down.
yeah, I think he says here, he's still planning to speak to somebody. And there might be other places that have another similar mechanism, but I think that seems like a big one to me.
Yeah, and the other thing that you already brought up is that there is that mistrust in the system that I've already dealt with this. For example, if what is happening in the school system, I've already dealt with it so many times and they are not able to watch. So people just like, oh, what's the point? When they don't trust the system, they're most likely not going to report.
And that's sort of the lack of follow-up, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's something you can articulate and promise, but I mean, I think you build up that trust over time.
Okay.
You build, you have to, you can't just declare, you have to build it. You have to demonstrate it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's why I think like when there is the follow-up, being realistic with people about the timeliness of like when, you know, what, like when is that gonna happen? And then really making sure it happens, because when it doesn't, then people will just be like, never mind.
Well, you know, along those lines, the third question I asked Dan, and we've touched on it here, is how and who should manage the intake of reports and incidents? So Dan's response was, I think the select board and or town, and I'll cross off select board, it's really, town should consider appointing a couple of trained and qualified people to be responsible for intake and responses. It's exactly what we talked about with Kerry. And he says perhaps this is 25 to 50% of their job. Boy, that's that much. We got real problems.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot. Bottom line is we need dedicated persons who have been trained and who have been a bandwidth to take on the work. And I think that is really important, because that's the front line of starting the response.
Mhm.
Can we put up, can you, my little incident, life cycle chart, do you have that? Where I can,
The
kind of-
one in the packet.
it is in the pack,
Last page.
it's on the last page. We keep, it's important that we keep talking about how this relates to response and follow-up, and I just, I want to make sure we all agree on this, because I think when we kind of report this out and when we talk about this, and when I talk about this at the DI commission, because they're very curious about what's our role in this? This is just collecting information. So this is, are you sharing that now? Or not yet.
I think, Michael, did you have something
It's just what you, before you start talking about the life cycle.
Yeah.
Just the point of who does what, someone dedicated person like this might be, what Dan was suggesting. It sounds a lot like a position for DEI director to the town. Just to my ear, it sounds like you're describing that. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, it could really prove the need for that director, right? You know,
In addition to what, has already.
well, you know, let's say worst case that there is so much underreporting that there's a lot of it, and this, you know, this becomes a near full-time job for somebody. And it's not just the response, it's sort of this, so if you look at this silly chart here, yeah, I put stars here where I think, you know, this system is involved. So you basically have the incident, and then you have the incident report. That's what we've been talking about here. It's reported by the victim or the bystander. You know, it can be reported by somebody who's witnessed that. Then there's the intake. This comes in to the town, let's say, to train people in the town. Then there's a response and support, and that's response and support can come from the police for certain incidents. It can come from the town social worker. if it could come probably not immediately, but it could be, the DI commission or the Human Resources Council. So how that support for the victim happens depends on the incident. So I think there's my little box here shows there's a team of possible first responders to the incident, and the first responders are people to support the victim, to support the individual. And that's where you start building up the trust that something is done initially with the report. Then, the system captures the data, right? And there's this little arrow here which shows over the long term there has to be coordination with the police, with the Middlesex DA, and hopefully with schools. This is a big aspiration that somehow these systems are coordinated. I'm not going to go into detail there, but in order for this to work as a town, each of these systems are in place for good reasons. The police system, Middlesex DA, and the schools. So this doesn't replace any of them, but they have to be, they have to be coordinated. The information in the town system hopefully would capture all the information from all the systems in a appropriately to protect confidentiality. It's especially important with the schools, and we have a lot of discussions down the road to have with the schools. Okay, so then continue that. After the initial response to the individuals, on a monthly or quarterly basis, whenever we start analyzing the data. What are all these incidents showing us? What are the trends? How we report that? Unclear, but there's a data analysis. So where does that data analysis go? It goes to town management, and it goes to the select board. It goes to the community groups, through the reporting. This is what's happening in town. And there's a community response as well. It's not just a town management response. There's a community response, and that's where the DI Commission, Human Resource Council, and other groups in town, take the information, respond as needed. What that actually means, what's the action plan on a community level, not on the individual response. And so what happens with that, over time, we reduce the incidence. And that's why I just kind of connected that. And then I have this here just to show that, and this, to your point, Naomi, what do we do with the information? Who responds? It's outside the system, but very much connected to this. We're aware of that. So in our recommendations to the select board, we're going to have to articulate what happens to this information. What's our recommendation? And I sent this out. There's been kind of crickets on this. Does anybody have any? Does this make sense? Is there anything missing on this? Could we better represented? I don't know.
I just wonder, in terms of all the research that people have done for other towns and other institutions, has anybody talked to the people there? Like, did it work? What did you find? What would you say was most successful about what you did? Because all these towns have things, but crickets.
I don't think we've had those conversations. We've been, as far as I know, we've been a little antiseptic in terms of how we've collected the data. It's online. We've looked at the forms, the descriptions of how they, what their system is. Some of those have flow charts, but do they work? Is your question?
Yeah, or what do they work for? Like, have people responded, and then what all these universities, what have they done? Have they protected people? Have they not protected people? Have they protected some people, not other people?
Some say, so because our church was around data collection, we haven't gone to that level, but from the reporting mechanism, for example, BC actually points out that if you want to report, if this is like a criminal one, they'll immediately link you to a certain number, And immediately police, so for example, if you are sexually assaulted right there and then, that is something that is urgent. Or any other criminal one. Then if there's a intended harm for a child, that one is also, there is no anonymity over that because we're all mandated reporters. So that one, whether the person wants it or not, the caveat is already there. I think what we have to be clear about is providing this language or having it on the form or whatever, that please know that for these categories, we are mandated to refer either to the police or to different parties. So that people don't come back and say, I didn't know about this.
That's very important.
You can take that off there. Carrie, have you had any conversations with your peers and other surrounding communities about these systems and how and do they work within town? I'm just wondering whether you've had any conversations.
You know, to be honest, the conversations I've had with my peers are more about is this a significant issue in your community? You know, how much do you hear about this? How are these issues raised? And at least the people that I have talked to, the sense that I have gotten is that this is not something that they are encountering on a regular basis. Now, I think given the way the world is, I think it's probably similar to us where things are happening and it's not being reported. But you know, outside of the context of things that are that fall under the police umbrella, people are not, this is not getting the attention in a lot of communities from my perspective, talking to colleagues.
Well, it's interesting, some of those communities have these systems, and I'm just wondering, Naomi, to your point, I think benchmarking, which I call it, we have to do that. We have to talk to several, representative communities, Sudbury, Acton, Belmont, towns that have these systems and talk to the people to find out. So that's our work plan doesn't have that on it. I'm going to add that to it, and I think our next meeting we should talk about who should we benchmark with and have those conversations.
Paul, I don't know if Jess has anything to offer. I know Jess has worked in Belmont, and I know has some strong ties in Belmont. And I know Belmont is a community that is often referenced. I'm not sure if she has. I don't mean to single her out either, but maybe she might have something to add.
No worries. I am here. There wasn't a huge push for this in Belmont when I was there. Andover, we did have a DEI director, and they had talked about having a response system and whatnot, but it never got off the ground running for a variety of reasons. So that's just my recent experience that I can add.
Let's identify some communities to kind of recontact. And so Belmont does have a reporting system. What you're saying is not really that active, or it's just on paper? What's your recent experience with Belmont, Jess?
I haven't been there since let's see, I left there I think in 2020. So it's been 6 years since I worked there. And I don't think they even had the line or the response system when I was there. I think it's been in recent years.
Okay. Well, I think we should make an effort to kind of ask that question. We might, that's sort of the institutional focus groups, right?
Yeah. And you might want to ask even some of the universities too, just
Wow.
if you think that's helpful.
Yeah, good. Let's put that on the agenda for next meeting. So the homework assignments, the action items, that we talked about relate to kind of, I guess, shoring up the structure of the reporting, those first three questions, right? And I volunteered for number one, and Aggie volunteered for 2 and 3.
Mhm.
And so we'll kind of get that hopefully in a near final form that we can kind of move on from there. I think just about covers everything on the agenda. Let me just look here. Okay, upcoming meeting is scheduled. I forgot the dates. We did this doodle poll and it was like,
17 and 24,
I'm sorry,
March 17 and 24.
March 17th and 24th. And I don't think that everybody can, there's 4 out of 5 for all of those,
Yep.
I think. March 17th, March 24th. I am going to ask the select board for an extension to May 1st. I'm keying that up in my liaison report for tomorrow night. I don't think there'll be a problem with that. So, I think we should be able to wrap this up by May 1st. I think. I don't think there's any major topic that we haven't at least touched on here right yet. We've touched on a lot of them. Any further comments on any things we talked about tonight? Any further public comments?
No.
Okay, Carrie, anything else?
Nope, all set. Thank you.
Okay, then, good meeting adjourned.